Hello everyone and welcome to Game 5 of the World Chess Championship match between Gukesh of India, the challenger, and the champion Liren of China. Now, it's been 4 wild games so far, but the score is 2 ding to Gukesh. And last game was, okay, it wasn't as big of a snooze fest as game number 2, but it was somewhat slow. Games, obviously, the odd games are a bit more interesting, and the even games maybe not so much. So as this is an odd game, very much looking forward to this one being very interesting. So Gukesh has the white pieces. Let's check it out. But before that, you guys, scolded me in the previous video for not showing you any eye contact and action before the game actually starts. So here is what happens when the game ends. So this is what happened after the end of game 4. As you can see, there's the handshake, the game is over, and there is eye contact. So the eye contact only does not happen at the beginning of the game. For some reason, we still have yet to confirm that. And also, we do not have a photo of the handshake at the beginning of the game from this round, but we do have a nice photo of, after the few moves have been made. Ding trying to establish eye contact, or maybe he's just, piercing through Gukesh. Maybe he's not even looking at him. Who knows what's happening here? But yeah, just thought you guys might enjoy that before we go into the game. Now let's check it out. So Ding, or rather Gukesh with white opens with pawn to e4. So again, he's asking Ding the question, will he again go for the French defense? Because you know that the Ding won that very nice game with the French defense. He started the World Chess Championship match with it. And, well, did Gukesh prepare something crazy, maybe down the line, maybe on move 5, maybe on move 10, maybe on move 15? Or was it maybe, something completely different? So let's check it out. Ding does reply with pawn to e6, so he says, all right, I've had a pretty comfortable game. In the French, let's continue in this fashion and pawn to d4. We have pawn to d5, but now, not continuing like in game 1, e captures on d5. This is the exchange variation of the French, and I'm pretty sure you guys know that a certain someone said that playing for a draw with the white pieces is basically a crime against chess. And, well, is Gukesh committing a crime here? Only time will tell. Who knows what kind of poison Gukesh and his team have dug up, preparing for this game. So, okay, e captures on d5, we have e captures and knight to f3. We have knight to f6 and bishop to d3. And, okay, Ding could definitely continue in a symmetrical fashion, going bishop to d6, but he does not. He says, thank you for allowing me to actually play a game with black, pawn to c5. And okay, we have pawn to c3, and now pawn to c4. Already very rare, only a handful of games in the database. In top-tier games, the move was played some 2 months ago in the FIDE Olympiad by none other than the master of the mystic arts, Alexei Shirov. He played it against Niels Grandelius, and the game ended in a draw, but obviously if Shirov played it, you know that it's something that the Ding could definitely pull off considering his style. So okay, bishop to c2 and bishop to d6. In that game, Shirov versus Grandelius or Grandelius versus Shirov, castles was played. But here we have the immediate, castles by white was played. But here we have queen to e2 check, and it is now as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So Ding can choose to block with the bishop, something like bishop to e6. He can go, cowboy mode with king to f8, or he can block with bishop to e7, which doesn't make all that much sense because you've already moved the bishop to d6. So he plays queen to e7, asking, are you interested in a queen trade? And Gukesh trades the queens. Queen captures. We have king captures, saying that he's not worried about castles and rook e1, and that's exactly what Gukesh does. We have castles, rook to e8, and rook to e1 with check. Now again, Ding could decline the trade of the rooks, but he goes king to f8, rook captures on e8 with check, king captures on e8, and now bishop to g5. Okay, just nicely developing the bishop, and knight to b7. You could maybe consider something like knight to c6 if you want to maybe control more space, and then maybe have something like knight e7, then maybe bishop f5 or knight f5. But then you have to take bishop captures and f6 into consideration. Okay, you would double black's pawns, but then Ding would have the bishop pair. So is this something that you would want to do? Ding decides that it's better not to test Gukesh. He just goes knight d7, so this makes bishop captures on f6 not even a question. Knight b to d2, and now if you look at the time on the clocks, an hour and 37 for Gukesh and an hour and 52 for Ding. So Ding playing much faster here. However, for his next move, Ding takes something shy from 35 minutes, and he plays pawn to h6. And okay, a lot to be considered here, definitely. Does the bishop go to e3, to to e3, to h4? Do you capture on f6? Do you deliver a check first? So many moves to consider. But they're all perfectly fine. And here, bishop to h4, asking, will you pursue the matter further? We have knight to h5 by Ding, trying to gain control over the f4 square, and rook to e1 with check. We have king to f8, and now pawn to g4. Attacking the knight, chasing the knight away, and asking, okay, what do you do, knight f4 or knight back to f6? So knight to f4. Makes little sense to go back to f6, of course. Bishop to g3, and now knight to b6 by Ding. It looks like a weird square for the knight because, okay, you're defending these pawns, but it's not like anyone's attacking them. Where is the knight going after that? Well, maybe if the light square bishop moves for some reason and you can get the knight to a4, it will be impossible to defend these two pawns unless you're ready to play a move like rook to b1 and give up the e file to Ding's rook. So the knight on b6 is is a potential magnificent steed. So here we have pawn to g5, not allowing Ding to strike with pawn to g5. H captures on g5, knight captures, and bishop to d7. Okay, time on the clock is equal. Position is fine. It's hard to say what Ding will do with the light square bishop, not the most magnificent piece. But on the other hand, the g-pawn has been moved. If this bishop comes to h3 or f3 at some point, maybe it gets to this diagonal somehow, maybe d3, e4. It has potential. We have knight g to f3. You could consider some other moves from Gukesh, like you could go knight to f1, maybe to knight to e3, but he decides to go back with knight g to f3, and now Ding plays rook to e8. Okay, the rook trade is offered, knight to e5. For the moment, Gukesh declines, and bishop captures on e5. Ding says, okay, my bishop pair isn't doing all that much, even though, okay, the dark square bishop could be a bit more useful. It's better to remove this knight from e5. The knight on e5 is a monster and you do not want it there. And what Gukesh should most certainly do is play rook captures on e5. But he didn't. He played d captures on e5, and this is where life gets difficult for him. I will just show you why rook captures on e5 is better. It's not that crystal clear, because after rook captures and d captures, there are moves you could make, like knight to e6, but if you want to complicate it, you could play bishop to a4. And now look at this. Bishop captures on a4. The knight here on f4 is still hanging. You will move it. Knight to e2, check, king f1. You will capture the bishop with check, and only then capture on a4. And now what we've discussed, the knight on a4 is making problems for white. There's no good way to defend the pawn here, so you have to move the king into the game. Black will capture on b2, and after something like king e3, you're going to play knight to d1, check, king d4, and king e7, and you cannot capture on d5 because knight captures on c3. So it is a bit of an issue, but still it's a perfectly playable position for both. So rook captures on e5 is the way to go. Gukesh played d captures on e5, and this creates certain problems for him, but only if Ding plays the most precise move, and he does. He plays knight to d3. Now, I'm not asking you to pause the video here because it's not winning by force, but it is incredibly difficult to defend. Now, you have to capture the knight because the b2 pawn is hanging. Also, if you move the rook, then the e5 pawn is hanging, and there's no good way to handle that. So bishop captures on d3 is your only option, and with the knight on d3, the bishop on c2 isn't really doing all that much. So bishop captures on d3, we have c captures on d3, and now pawn to f3. And this is a brilliant idea by Gukesh. Point being that if you go rook e3, looks like it's a great move, but then all of a sudden bishop to f5 defends the pawn, and now after b3, stopping knight to c4, do you see what the genius move Ding had in mind is? It's not what you first might expect. It's not rook to c8. It's something that prepares rook to c8. It's actually pawn to d4. Pawn to d4, such a disgusting move to see on the board. It wasn't actually seen on the board, but good for Gukesh that he avoided it with this f3 line, because now if you move the rook, well, then it's not much of a position. And if you capture here, then rook comes to c8, and now with the c file open, there's not much you can do, like king to g2, rook comes to c2, attacks the knight. There's no way to defend the knight. You will have to move it pawn to d2, and now if you don't want to see a queen on the board, you will have to give up this knight for a pawn. So Gukesh spots this, plays pawn to f3, and now we have knight to c4. Knight to c4, we have knight captures on c4, d captures on c4, fixing Ding's pawn structure, and it's not going to be easy to defend. We have rook to e4 by Gukesh, and now bishop to c6. Look at this. Ding sacrificing a pawn on c4, but not really, because if you capture on c4, the threat is not bishop captures on f3. The threat is rook to d8, and you cannot stop the pawn from being promoted. Or you can play bishop to f4, but then of course d2, and you have to give up the bishop, and the position is completely winning. So here, after bishop to c6, everyone thought that it's over, Gukesh is going down, but Gukesh plays rook to d4. And all of a sudden, there's no clear way for Ding to make progress. Ding played bishop captures on f3. Other moves don't really help you. Like if you play pawn to b5, trying to improve your position, the king immediately comes to f2, and now you don't have any worries. The king will easily stop the pawn from being promoted if it is advanced forward. And if something like f6, pawn to f4, white is playing without any issues here. But instead, after rook to d4, Ding went for the capture, bishop captures on f3, king to f2, and now Ding could have continued playing this for probably an hour, or maybe half an hour, or maybe hour and a half, and really, putting a lot of questions Gukesh's way by playing bishop to h5. But he played bishop to c6. Bishop to h5 is really strong because it prevents, for one, rook captures on c4. If you capture it, then just pawn d2, and you cannot stop the promotion. So what you would have to do after bishop to h5 is something like king to e3, and okay, then we defend the pawn, and then if you challenge the pawn, you play something like rook to c8. The game continues, and it's very unpleasant for Gukesh. Something like rook d5, you can further defend the pawn chain, and if pawn to e6, you will go bishop g4. You will force white to capture. And if, let's say, a nice check, king goes to e8, and if pawn to e7, not a problem. Pawn to f6, and then you start getting your king into the game, and it is Ding playing this for the win. However, after king to f2, Ding went back, bishop to c6, played pretty much instantly. He didn't even think too much about this. Rook captures on c4 and rook to d8, but now the king is on f2. The king is not on g1, and Gukesh has the option of rook to d4. If the king was on g1, you would just trade and advance the pawn, and the king would not be able to reach the queening square from g1. But from f2, that is not an issue. Rook captures on d4, e captures bishop to d5, attacking the a2 pawn, and b3. We are now in an endgame of bishops of opposite color, and you know that, well, more often than not, they are a draw. King to e7, we have king to e3, king to e6, and king captures on d3. We have pawn to g6 and king to c3. Gukesh even being up a pawn now. We have pawn to a6, king to d3, and king to f5. Yes, you're up a pawn, but there's no way to make progress. You can never advance with your king, and you don't really want to give up the e4 square to the black king to go after the d4 pawn, so it's gonna be, as we call it, a dance of kings. King to e3, king to e6, king to d3, king to f5, king to e3, and king to e6, and he was in this position on move 40 upon reaching time control that Gukesh and Ding agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here, or rather it is a draw by threefold repetition. Again, very nice play by Ding with the black pieces. It seems like he's getting a lot more than in any other game when playing the French against black. Seems he prepared it very well. Seems he understands it very well. And if he, took his time, didn't really push this position after he was reached here, after he rushed bishop captures on f3, going back to c6. Had he gone bishop to h5, we would have a much different game. And it's a very interesting decision, abandoning the queening square. I'm sure he had his reasons, and even though this is probably, you know, in the long run, it is a draw, but you're playing a World Chess Championship match. It is, I feel like everyone's tired of repeating this, but if Magnus had this, if you gave him, if you gave Magnus this opportunity, no way is he letting you off the hook. Like he will drag you through he will drag you through the mud, the sand, the glass, he will torture you, you know, just you will have to prove that you are able to defend this, not just go back bishop to c6 and it's game over. So yeah, it is what it is. Definitely a nice chance for Ding in game 5. Didn't go his way. The score is now 2.5 to 2.5, and Ding will get the white pieces in the next game. We'll see what happens, and hopefully it's gonna be a wild one, because I'm not too thrilled about a World Chess Championship game, you know, finishing in some 3 hours. I'm expecting a World Chess Championship game to last 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. I know it's exhausting for the players and even for the, you know, for the streamers and for us who do the recaps, but that's what I expect from a World Chess Championship game. Like, you know, exhaust every single possibility, burn that time, and produce a, you know, something that you will be proud of in the years to come. Okay, maybe I'm asking too much, but, you know, I have my rights and I expect what I expect. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank David Gasparian, Jack Obit, Thomas Veterli, Peter Smith, and Ahmed Khalil for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you still haven't, make an account on ICC, try playing some games, challenge the bots, see how you like it, and share some of your thoughts in the comment section below. See you soon.